Okay, we're going to do one on greatest common factor. So you might see it written GCF. Anytime you see GCF, it stands for greatest common factor. So first we're going to talk about what is a factor. So a factor is a number that will multiply to get the number in question. Sounds kind of confusing. So what I'm saying is, let's say you have 36 and you want to know the factors of 36. So it's every number that's on the times table that multiplies that eventually gets 36. So the first number that you always have is 1. 1 will go into every single number. So the next number that you try is 2. I know it's 2 because this is an even number. Anything that ends in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8 is an even number. So another way of looking at it is, can you take half of that number without getting a decimal or a fraction? And you can. Well, let's try the next number, 3. Now I know 3 goes into it. If you know your times tables, you know 3 goes into it. But if you don't know if 3 will go into a number, divide by 3. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 6 twice. Now, in doing that, I also found out that 12 is a factor, because 3 times 12 is 36. We'll hold off on that. Again, the next number is 4. Does 4 go into a number? You should know your times tables, because when you divide by 4, 4 won't go into 3, so you have to go 4 into 36. So you're going to have to know your times tables anyway. And I always say the most important thing that you can know before you take the GED is your times tables. You're not always going to have a calculator for these. And this specific question, greatest common factor, is at the beginning of the GED, and you do not have a calculator for this question. So if you know your times tables, you know 4 times 9 is 36. So we know 4 goes in there. 5 should be easy. If it doesn't end in a 5 or a 0, then 5 won't go into it. 6. If you know your times tables, 6 times 6 is 36. So you only have to list 1. You don't have to list 2 6s. 7. If you know your 7s, you know 7 doesn't go into 36 evenly. 8 doesn't. 9 we determined does. 10 was got to end in a 0 to be 10. 11 doesn't. 12 we already determined does. 13 doesn't, but just in case you want to try, if you want to guess, see if 13 goes into a number, you can multiply by something to get close. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. So 39 is not 36. So I know that 13 will not go into 39. 14, you can do the same thing, but I know 14 won't. 15 won't. 16 won't. 17 won't. Now here's where it kind of gets tricky, because you're getting bigger numbers that are not on your times tables. And what you can do is you can see the pairs that they make. Well, 6 times 6 was in the middle, so that's your middle number. 4 times 9 was 36. 3 times 12 is 36. So 2 has to get multiplied by something. So 2 actually gets multiplied times 18 to get 36. And then the last number is always the number itself. 36 will go into 36 one time. So you always have at least 2 factors, 1 and yourself. So those are all the factors of 36. Now this is the long way to do it. I'm going to teach you a short way to find the greatest common factor. Now these aren't greatest common factors, these are just factors. You have to have 2 numbers to have a greatest common factor. For example, let's say you had 64, and 24. And you wanted to know the greatest common factor of these two numbers. If you have your times tables memorized, this can be easy. So we know 1 will go into both of them. We know 2 will go into both of them. And then you can start trying larger numbers, or you can start from the top down. You say, well, 24 go into 64. Well, if you multiply it out, 24 times 3 is 72. 24 times 2 is 48. So neither of those numbers are close to 64. 23 is probably not going to go in. 22, 21, 20. You almost have to get down to half before you hit the next number. So 12 would be the next number. Well, 12 times 5 is 60. And 12 times 6 is 72. So 64 falls in between those two. So 12 doesn't go in there. 11 doesn't. 10 doesn't go into either one. 9 doesn't go into either one. So we go to 8. And like I said, if you know your times table, you know 8 times 8 is 64. 3 times 8 is 24. So since 8 is on both sides, and that was the biggest number that would go into both of those numbers, the greatest common factor of those two numbers is 8. Now, if you have multiple choice, it makes it a lot easier. And on the GED, it usually is multiple choice. Over here, they'll have A, B, C, D, and sometimes they'll even have E. And they might have 2 to try to trick you. They might even have 4 to try to trick you, because both of these are factors of both of those. 2 and 4 will go into both of those numbers. But remember, you want the greatest common factor. And then they'll have 12, which is wrong, we determined. And they might have 16 and 24. So what I would suggest is starting with the largest number, like I did over here. I determined that 24 will not go into 64. Then you can move on to 16. Well, I think 16 will go into this. So if you just divide into that and say, okay, well, I know 16. Let's see what that is. I think it's 4. Yeah, 24, 64. So 4 times 16 is 64. So 64 will go into that. Well, if you mark that, it's wrong, or 16, because 16 won't go into 24. So you move down to 12. 12 will go into 24, but it won't go into 64. We determined right here. Oh, it would have helped if I would have put left one answer correct. All those are incorrect. So 4 and 8. 4 will go into it, but 8 is larger and it goes into both. So 8 would be the answer. So this first sheet is like how I started. It just wants to know factors. So which of the following numbers are factors of 24? So it wants you to circle all the answers. So 6 goes into 24 4 times. 12 goes into 24 2 times. 14 won't go into 24. We just determined that. 8 goes into 24 3 times. 2 goes into 24 12 times. So 4 of the 5 answers are correct. They probably won't do something like this on the GED. They'll only have one answer correct usually. Which of the following numbers are I almost read right over it. That's a prime example of how you can go wrong on the GED. That one word changes the whole problem. Which of the following are not factors of 15? Well, 5 will go into 15. So that's not an answer, because that is a factor. They want the ones that are not. Remember I said a number will always go into itself. So 15 is a factor of 15. 9 won't go into 15 evenly. 3 times 5 is 15. 10 won't go into 15 evenly. So there's your factors that are not a factor of 15. So second page has all the answers. You can check yourself on the rest of these problems. This one's a little simpler. This just has one answer. So it says, which choice is not a factor of 36? So 9 times 4 is 36, so I can mark out 9 and 4. 2 will go into any even number, so that leaves 7. 7 won't go into 36, so that's your answer. Down here it says, which choice is a factor of 22? Well, that's obvious. I said anytime you have itself, it will go into itself. So you don't even have to think about that one. So 70. 19 won't go into 70 even. 10 will. 4 won't. And 3 won't. And you can do those longhand. You don't have to have all of your numbers memorized all the way up to 70. But I know that 7 times 10 is 70. So you can finish that page out. The answers are on the second page. This worksheet is more like the GED, but you'll have larger numbers. These are some pretty small numbers for GED. GED will get up in double digits, like 11, 13, and 14, and 17. I'm going to leave this first sheet for you to do. I want to draw your attention to some on the second page. So it says, what is the greatest common factor of 54 and 81? So let's just say we started the way I said not to do it, which is starting with the smallest number, 3. And I went over here and I said, well, 3 go into 54. 3 goes into 5 once, leaves 24. 3 goes into 24 8 times. So 3 is a factor of 54. 81 divided by 3. 3 goes into 8 twice. Subtract, you get 2. Down your 1, 3 goes into 21 7 times. So 3 is a factor of both 54 and 81. If I marked 3 and moved on, I would get that incorrect. And I'll show you why. 8 I know isn't a factor because 8 won't go into either of these if you know your times tables. So we know it's not 8. 11. 11 won't go into 54 because 11 times 5 is 55. So it's not going to go into that one. And 11 times 8 is 88. So we get down here to the 9. 54 divided by 9 is 6. 81 divided by 9 is 9. So even though you've got 2 common factors, 3 and 9, you have to pick the greatest one because they want the greatest common factor. So that means my answer is 9. Now I don't know if this was a formatting issue or an error on their mistake, but for some reason number 12 only has 3 answers. And the 3 answers that it has are not correct. It says, what is the greatest common factor of 36 and 18? Well, 3 will go into both of them. Okay. 9 will go into both of them. 9 times 4 is 36. 9 times 2 is 18. And 6 will go into both of them. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 3 is 18. So they're all factors. So you would think the answer is 9, but they left one off. I don't know why. Because if you take 18 and multiply by 2, you get 36. So the real answer to number 21 or number 12 is actually 18. So these are not the correct answers. Again, I don't know why it's missing one. Now here's another one I'm going to call to your attention that's like number 9 up here that has 2 answers that are correct, but only one of them is the greatest. So 24. So if you looked at A and you said, well, 6 will go into 24, 6 will go into 60, and you marked it, you'd be wrong. Now this is a case of all 4 of them. 2 will go into both of those because they're even. 3 will go into both of those. So let's move on to 12, which you should have just started with in the beginning because it's always easier to start with a larger number. Well, 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 5 is 60. So 12 goes into both of those. So your answer is actually 12. This has the answers on the last page. There might be some errors. I tried to check over all these pages, but I may have missed something, sort of like that one was a mistake. And that is greatest common factor. That is the end of the video.